I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. I'm here today with Gordon Lawson, CEO at Conceal, provider of an intelligence-grade zero trust technology that protects global companies of all sizes from malware and ransomware. To learn more about our sponsor Conceal, visit conceal.io. Also joining us is Adam Keown, Global CISO at Eastman, a Fortune 500 company based in Kingsport, Tennessee. Welcome, Adam and Gordon. Great to have you both with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
So, Adam, if I was hiring a CISO, I mean, you would be it. You know, we've talked through a whole lot in the past month, and I want to revisit a couple of things that we spoke about because I know Gordon has a lot to add, and I think after processing a lot of what you shared, I may too. You and I talked about a Moodys investor service survey, and you brought this to my attention, and I'm really glad that you did. In that survey, cybersecurity leaders reporting to a C-suite individual, that could be a CEO, a CFO, a CIO, has jumped from 61% in 2020 to 90% last year. I mean, that's a massive jump in just a few years. What's going on?
Well, businesses have recognized that cyber threats are no longer just an IT problem, that it's a much wider problem to deal with. When cyber threats come online, when there's an attack that's taking place, or even even some sort of continuity issue, it is a threat to the operations of the business, and it could possibly be a threat to their intellectual property. That's why this position has been elevated. And it also gives the opportunity for someone who's in a CISO position to have additional alignment with other departments and to have that influence over other groups that they haven't had before.
Now, in that same report, it indicated that 45% of executives are having a monthly briefing. So these are the CEOs in the C-suite, and they're actually being briefed on a monthly basis. Is that accurate, 45%? It sounds high, at least coming from what we're used to. What takes place in those meetings? I mean, what are they asking, and what are CISOs telling them?
The question is a little ambiguous because I brief executives across the company regularly. And so I'm at least talking to one a month, and oftentimes multiple in a given month. But the questions that are coming up regularly are around wellness of the team. They're asking about the people. How is the cyber team doing? They're asking questions about what are the latest threats? How are we defending on those threats? And even what is our strategy for protecting the systems and the data from some sort of compromise?
Now, does any of that come from not necessarily your company, but what the C-suite executives are reading in the news about other companies? They're seeing other Fortune 500 companies suffering breaches, either being unprepared or suffering extended downtime?
I can't keep up, with all the cyber articles out there. And oftentimes these executives will email me an article, even in my previous roles and stuff, they'll email me an article and say, have you seen this one? Do you know about this one? They're just wanting to make sure I'm aware of what's going on. And it's clear that large publications and news media are continually putting out these cybersecurity articles.
So, Gordon, you talk to a lot of CISOs. This is global, a lot of them at large enterprises. We've been reading about this in the news. I mean, look, boardroom, cybersecurity, you connect those two, a lot of people are going to read it. But is it starting to actually become a reality where they're taking it seriously enough that they're being more engaged with their CFOs on the budget around cybersecurity, being more engaged with their CISOs?
Great question, Steve. I think absolutely. I think what we're seeing is when you see Fortune 100 organizations that are having to pay out tens of millions of dollars for ransomware just to keep continuity going, that's obviously not just a cyber issue, that's a major business issue and a financial issue. So I think that folks are coming to the realization that this has to be a holistic approach. No matter what type of business you are, you have to dedicate significant amounts of funding to ensure you have the proper cyber posture. Unfortunately, as we've talked about a lot, threat actors or nation state sponsored criminal gangs are getting more and more sophisticated with the types, the vectors of their attacks. It's going to be very tough, I think, for any business to continue to respond. But, obviously everyone's doing their best to try and keep up with the threats effectively.
So, Adam, budgets are inextricably linked to the, protection of a company. Let's face it. I mean, I know that there's a lot that could be done, without the extra money. But at the end of the day, every CISO is talking to every, CFO and every C-suite about their budget. What is that budget going to look like on an annual basis? And that trickles down to headcount and to protecting the infrastructure. So, in this survey, they talked a little bit about budget. We had a conversation, and interestingly, a bigger chunk is now being devoted to cybersecurity coming out of that, entire technology budget. What accounts for that?
There's a couple of ways to parse that. One is the cybersecurity budget overall is going up, but oftentimes some of the IT budgets are remaining flat across the board. And so they end up getting a bigger overall percentage. At the same time, the reason cybersecurity budgets are increasing is because of the increased amount of compliance and regulatory environment that is coming directly into cybersecurity. Not only because the regulators are passing laws, but additionally, the expansion of where the footprint is going to be. So whether it's on individual devices or during COVID, everyone went home and was working on their computers at their house. Where the company's data sits has spread out so far and so wide, and it continues to spread out, especially as we're trusting third parties in the cloud to handle part of our data with that shared responsibility, or even around mergers and acquisitions. If we're buying a company, selling a company, there's a huge risk in integrating another company or even selling off part of your company to make sure that they got the data that they were supposed to get when they left, and you didn't get something you were not supposed to get when you joined.
Gordon, in the boardroom, CEOs, C-suite, even MSPs, MSSPs, is there any one word that's scarier than ransomware? I mean, if you really want to get their attention and get them thinking about how are we going to respond to this, because it is just not letting up.
I think that's definitely the scariest word. But I think the other word that is coming up is just preparedness. Preparedness, and I'd put risk mitigation or risk profile. I know that's two words. I'd put those right up there too. You got to talk in those sort of terms, because I do feel, as I've said before, Steve, I feel sympathy, Adam. I know it's tough being a startup CEO. I think it's tougher being a large corporation CISO right now. You guys have so much that you have to watch over here. There's little room for error, and you guys just do a heck of a job protecting your organizations. And as I've said, these threats evolved so quickly. I hope that we're doing the right thing on the vendor side, and making sure that we're working well with you and your colleagues to provide that, the best ways to mitigate those risks every day.
The way I've been framing it for a few years now is around resiliency. That's what I talk about. If something happens, how resilient are we to containing an impact? How resilient are we to getting the systems back up and running again? That's the focus for me. Or even, I was talking about business continuity there. Even if I go to the intellectual property side, if that IP gets out, how resilient are we from protecting the rest of the IP or preventing all of it from getting out? Those are the conversations that I have.
Adam, I'm curious as it relates to ransomware and any kind of cyber attack, really, but the ransomware attacks are just so damaging. How much does cyber insurance equalize that? And I'm listening to you, and on the one hand, I'm thinking, okay, there's the monetary protection insofar as a ransom payout. That's not really doing anything for your resiliency. It's not changing your team. It's not changing your incident response plan. But I know that a lot of money is being spent on cyber insurance.
Yeah, the cyber insurance market, as we have talked before, Steve, is just really fluctuating. It still hasn't what I would call settled into proper premiums and such. At the same time, the market is taking everything to do with cyber, and they are getting in the weeds, and even companies requiring their partner companies to have cybersecurity insurance or auditing privileges with a large provider that you may have. That's becoming more of the norm. Even situations where where government entities across the globe are getting involved, saying, what kind of cyber program do you have before we're willing to engage you with grants, before we're willing to engage you with approving permits and other items?
Gordon, I want to ask you about publicly traded company CISOs in particular. And I guess at some point this will apply to all CISOs, or maybe not. They have been thrust into the spotlight in the aftermath of the Uber and SolarWinds hacks and some others, but those two in particular. Personally, I don't think it's good for our industry, and I'm really concerned. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that there's always levels of accountability. I think these particular examples are not great for the industry, because it's not as if a CISO is they're under a lot of scrutiny, and they have to operate kind of flawlessly to regardless, and they have to ensure, as I said, that resiliency. To have criminal or even civil penalties for a threat that is potentially nation state sponsored, most likely nation state sponsored, that's I think where the line gets crossed in my mind. Obviously, there's indemnities, and there's even boards of directors have D&O insurance and those sorts of things to prevent that sort of punitive action on things. And I feel like there needs to be the same sort of protections for a CISO. As long as there is no gross negligence on something, then to take that sort of criminal approach is way overboard.
So to hear it directly from a large enterprise CISO, Adam, is this overblown? I mean, the SEC rules and what we're hearing and talking about in the industry and reading in the news, are we at risk of a really, really good CISO not wanting to be a CISO anymore?
I am hearing from the different groups I'm in opinions all over the map when it comes to this. I've already talked to 2 CISOs that said they just went ahead and retired because they didn't want to be a part of this anymore with all the new regulatory that was going in place. At the same time, I can tell you that I personally read through the entire indictment on SolarWinds because not only because I'm a retired federal agent, but at the same time, I wanted to know what they were saying. And one of the things that really struck me is it's about integrity. If you're willing to be truthful, upfront, not try to hide things, that provides so much more stability and foundation in you being able to say, this is why I made the decision I made. These are the steps I took to make the decision. You document those type of decisions. It provides so much more foundation for you to be able to defend yourself if something like this comes up, and that's where I emphasize.
Right. Well, without naming names, one of the concerns I have for the CISOs is just personal reputational harm. So even if you come out of it okay because you have, as you say, document everything and you've been forthcoming, having your name in the news every day is not a good thing.
No, it's not. It's not good for you. It's not good for your family. We've seen not only executives, but other leaders of companies targeted in specific attacks. There was one last year where his 9 or 10-year-old son received a phone call because someone found his child's phone number on the internet and called and was harassing his family. So you don't take this job to be in the news daily, to be out there being interviewed by MSNBC every day. That's just not why you go into this type of profession.
So Gordon, you've joined me, interviewing so many CISOs because you've got great insights, but I'm the one who always gets to ask the questions, and then you chime in. So maybe we can close out today because Adam is, right at the top of the list of the CISOs we've met with, and that's why we enjoy having him on so much. So maybe you could ask a question, anything you'd like to pose to Adam to close out.
What is the definition, or what is an example that you could share with the community about a great interaction with a vendor, and one that you find is really rewarding from your perspective?
I've been using this answer for a long time now, so I can easily rattle that one off. Is building a relationship with the CISO or that team. At smaller companies, when the CISO may be one of 2 cyber employees, usually it's difficult to build anything with the team, and you go directly to the CISO. But at certain sizes, I don't even talk to vendors until my team has vetted them multiple times already or had multiple conversations. And so those relationships are very important. I'll tell you, the one thing I don't like is when I get the email or the voicemail or the LinkedIn message that says, tell me about all your strategies this year so that I can tell you how I can sell you my product. And that, unfortunately, I still get those messages regularly.
Adam, I have to share one quick story. This was one of your colleagues. It was also based in Tennessee. The story is about 5 or 6 years old. A BDR had sent her a note saying, "You've been breached and you need us to help you." Like just trying to create shock to get the call back. And I was like, when I heard that story, I've always told our folks, there is nothing worse than, compromising your integrity. If you want to destroy a relationship, try that tactic. But I have to say that there's some pretty crazy ones that people try and use. And for everyone out there, do not use that one.
This gives me a great idea for a new series, how to alienate CISOs. I think people would really enjoy that one.
And there's plenty of examples out there. I could tell you the primary focus of the CISO job is just balancing transparency and confidentiality of the company. I mean, that is, and communicating that message. And as long as we can focus on that, and like you said, have a ton of integrity behind it, things are going to go much better.
Adam, you're one of the best. Appreciate you coming on and taking the time, and hope to have you back on soon.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. This interview is sponsored by Conceal, provider of an intelligence-grade zero-trust technology that protects global companies of all sizes from malware and ransomware. To learn more about our sponsor Conceal, visit conceal.io. You can keep up with all of our media at cybercrimemagazine.com.